Yeah. Hello, hello. Check, check. Hi, I'm Sriram and I have Mahesh here with me. And today we're just here to talk about collaborations. As you guys know, at the IndianRaga Fellowship and in general, we do a lot of collaborative work between artists, not only from similar but highly diverse genres, where they all come together and try to create something that's truly innovative. Now, some of these innovations are in the traditional paradigm, and some of them are cross cultural and new age. And hopefully, through our conversation, we might just uncover what worked in some of these and what also did not work in many of the collaborations we've tried to do. So, we've done a bunch of interesting collaborations last year at the fellowship, and we're doing many more this year as well. So, I was thinking maybe let's pick on a few of those and see.
Okay.
And since obviously Cheap Thrills has gone
Yes.
off on a totally different direction of its own, let's just talk a little about that, like how it kind of came up. And I know we were discussing like trying to pick something very recent and trying to pick something that's on everyone's mind.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So so at the fellowship, I don't know, like, so basically you were handling video, and backstage me, Neha, and we were just practicing, and suddenly like Naren just started playing something on Mridangam, and we were like, oh, like, why not do this in the form of a kacheri? And we just like came to you, we like pitched the idea to you, and you were like, you're crazy. But somehow we just ended up doing it with a lot of fun, and it's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we didn't really expect it to take off the way it did, and it sort of like resonated with a lot of people. And I think I've been having a lot of these conversations later on, and of course, hindsight is 2020. But it's been very interesting to see what different people liked. Some people liked the Tani Avartanam that happened in the middle. Some people really liked the fact that there was this violent trill that happens at the end of every line.
Yeah.
So kind of bringing back to something that is authentic Carnatic, which they could now find in
Yeah.
something else. And there was a comment on Facebook recently which sort of made me, it kind of really resonated with me, which is about us being honest about the culture that we live in today, which is we're not only looking at Carnatic music, we're also constantly every day I look at like pop music, I look at EDM stuff, I'm listening to all kinds of things. So I think just the idea of like picking two good pieces and blending them, I think probably
I didn't
worked.
think of all this when we made it, but okay.
Yeah, but I think going forward, some of the things we've since then been thinking about is Cheap Thrills as a song also has a very feel good factor about it.
Yeah,
right.
It has a very nice hook.
Yeah,
And it just sticks in your head.
Yeah,
Like, so
yeah.
it's catchy.
and if you see the video of the original as well, I think that also again has a very good feel and vibe with it. So I think it worked. So how did the process of putting the various elements happen, like the Carnatic coming together with the background music, the instrumentation, and everything?
So if you've heard the track, it's just like the background is almost exactly like the original. I just what we try to do is we just have like a very basic version of the track, and we layer all the Carnatic elements over that, because the thing with Carnatic music performed at kacheri is like it's free flow. It's like no metronome, no BPM. It's just like works with your mind. But when you're doing something Western, you need like a click track, and it's just how pop music works. So basically, I made a rough track, and I got each person record their parts on top of it. For the Dhanyavartan section, I just left it to Anant and Naren to figure it out. I just gave them like, okay, here's your 16 bars, do whatever you want, and they did a splendid job. So that's how it worked, and yeah, that's it. It's just like putting things together, and after I record them, I see what parts work best. Then it's all about me structuring it to make it work together.
So let me ask you a question. So many people, someone actually asked me that if we are looking to do these interesting collaborations, why do we need people who are extremely seasoned in their art form? So had it not been a Sushmita who is like so well trained in Carnatic violin and also vocals, would it have worked with someone who was probably not as highly trained but like less trained?
No. Basically, why I prefer working with well-trained musicians is they have a very good taste in music, first of all. So they will know when they're out of tune, right? That's the most important thing. So basically, if I tell you, like if they're doing something wrong, they would know. They'll be like, okay, retake. With somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, it's just a waste of time, right? And obviously, when you're so well trained, you're accustomed to listening to maestros, so you tend to pick up things very quickly. And the kind of improvisations that Sushmita can give me, not anybody else. Like
That's right.
so.
Yeah. And that's, I think, exactly why we pick such high quality of musicians
Yeah.
at the fellowship. And we also think about, are they trained well enough in the traditional genre
Yes.
and not just in terms of their new age creativity and everything. So that's great. That I think it's been a very good video that we enjoyed producing, and then it's great to see all the success it's had
Yes.
since. But before we go on to some of the other collaborations, should we also talk about, because on one hand we say collaborating across genres, but then we also look at very high quality of innovation within the given genre itself. So
like the Kawawa piece.
like Kawawa, which I think has been legendary at Indian Raga, and like almost everyone from maestros to beginners to just like people who have no idea of Carnatic music have enjoyed immensely.
Yeah.
And we've been sort of trying really hard to match or probably up it since that fellowship. So just your thoughts on like what happened
That
in
was
that
a
piece?
splendid piece. Those two vocalists.
Aditya and Shashank.
Yeah, it's so talented. I haven't seen kids like that. So it's just that the way the whole Alapanai section and the whole Kalpana Swara, this is done so well. And obviously the Akshay.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah, like I just love that piece, and that's one of the pieces that made me email you that day.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think for something that has to live on YouTube for a very long period of time and keep catching people's attention to keep coming back and looking at more, is that approach enough? Because I know Aditya and Shashank, the number of hours they worked on
Yeah.
every single note in that piece almost feels like
Exactly,
it belongs there. So thoughts on
So
that?
basically, like the difference between a YouTube thing, you can watch it again and again, right? And if you're watching it again and again, there needs to be like a certain structure. Like the musical structure is very important, and people have like they obviously practiced for so long. Every note was pre-planned, and like that's the thing with YouTube. Like you need to have everything properly. So it can't be longer than what it is, and it can't be shorter than what it is. So if you're unprepared for a performance like that, it might exceed the length, or like you have to really control how, because that was the perfect length for Kawawa.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been any longer.
It's also one of the few pieces where I allowed them to go beyond 5 minutes.
Yes. So it worked, and it was planned in such a way that the audience isn't bored. So I just had to watch the whole thing because the flow was such that the end point was the end point, the perfect end point.
Yeah.
So what I felt was it was perfectly structured, and that's something that is very rare.
Yeah.
And that's like you can perform Varali for 1 hour, but unless it's perfectly structured, you're going to lose your audience.
Right. Right.
So that's what I.
And I also feel like, just to kind of clarify, like it was still improvised. So
Yeah.
while it was pre-planned in many ways, what they were actually presenting there sort of, you can't memorize all of those
You
notes,
can't,
of course.
yeah.
But just thinking through, some of the phrases used in that ragam were just so rare. I personally haven't heard some of them in like a lot of concerts. And similarly, when I was showing it to a couple of maestros down south in India, they were sort of keeping the talam along with it just to kind of know the tishram they used, the melkalam tishrams
Yeah.
they used, and all of those innovations. So any other pieces that come to mind when we're thinking of innovation within tradition?
I like the Ranjani Tilana.
That's a lab, but yeah, but
Yeah.
it's still. What do you like about that? What do you think was?
It's like really creative. It's the high quality of music. That's what I really like about it, and the variations within the Tilanas. That was one of my favorite pieces as well.
So now coming back to some of the collaborations we did, so EDM Tilana, and I'm sure many of our audiences would love to hear about the genesis of the piece, and I remember you were so excited about the beat structure,
Yeah.
and just tell us more about it.
Okay, so EDM Tilana is a very interesting piece. I don't even know why we call it EDM because it's in 5/4, which is a very rare time signature. So so the way we worked is we got Sushmita and Vinod on board, and then I didn't know how to work with them because it was like the first time I'm doing EDM in this time signature. So I just gave them like a BPM, like a metronome, just send me your tracks and then I'll work on it. So basically what they did was we had a structure in mind. We knew we were going to start from the Anupallavi, and then we knew how many times each line was to be sung. So that was all set. Now they send me the recordings. Now after they send it to me, I made the track. So the thing was why I asked for recording first is they're just so talented. They can think of some variations which I can't think of myself. So that's another reason why we need like really talented fellows. So after they send me the track, I just like worked with it. I see what they gave me, and accordingly I created like some sort of environment around their voices, and that's just how it worked. So and then there was a back and forth, like do this take again, do that line differently, add more feel to this take, and at the end Vivek came on board like a ninja. So so yeah, that's how it's just like a back and forth, and it worked really well because each singer was recording at their own comfort zone, so no pressure from anybody.
So just so people know, and many of them say that, oh, of course it's easy for you guys because you all met up and collaborated and that's easy. Can you talk about like how all these happened and which countries and time zones we worked in?
Oh God. So the three of them are in USA and I'm in Dubai. So all of this was done over email, and that was it. Like, and I didn't meet Vinod or talk to Vinod before the fellowship actually happened. The fellowship was actually the first time I actually spoke to Vinod. So.
But then by the time the track was almost done.
Yeah, it was done.
Completely done.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Or maybe let's just talk about Padharo Mare Des. A very different piece compared to say EDM Tilana or Cheap Thrills in that the musical environment is a lot simpler, and I think you catered that to the feel of the legendary classic folk songs.
Yeah.
What was the approach in your mind for that?
Yeah, just like the Tilana, this is in 7 cycles. So this was like, but the thing is like it's a folk song, and I wanted to retain the main element of the folk piece. So, which is why I think we chose Apurva, because she was the best fit amongst all the fellows. So basically, this, oh, by the way, I don't know if a lot of people, this was recorded in that corridor.
Yep. Which one exactly?
The one below Kreske.
Right. So,
the basement.
The audio for Padharo Mare Des, which actually sounds phenomenal when you listen to the final finished track. The audio was recorded in the corridor below the main Kresge Auditorium stage where the fellowship productions were happening, and we couldn't go anywhere and find like a soundproof,
Yeah, so just took a small mic and just Apurva was sitting down. That's the beauty of the fellowship. We can record anywhere. But yeah, that took an hour for the vocals to get done, and then the track was ready, and then after that I layered some more elements on top of it. So it's all about like how you structure. Once you have a basic structure, everything else will fall into place. So that's what I think, if you're coming for if you're doing a project, in a musical project, just have a proper structure ready, then you can work easier. It's a lot easier when you have things in place.
Right. So since the 2016 fellowship, we've started the process for 2017, and you've had a chance to sort of observe how all these different groups are being formed and how they are either successfully or unsuccessfully trying to collaborate remotely.
Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts on those who are watching and thinking, oh, but Mahesh created the bass track? But if there's 4 or 5 of you who don't have the capability to do that, how do you start the process? Where does it begin? And then what's a good way to sort of like take it forward?
Okay, so I did create the bass track, but before the bass track there was something called structure. So we knew how many times you sing Padharo Mare Des. We knew what comes after that. So basically, even without the bass track, they sent, like, we didn't have a bass track for Tilana, right? So it was just like, okay, this is your BPM, this is the scale, sing, send it to me. That's how it worked, and that's one way. So basically, when I receive the recording, I get inspired in such a way. So that's how collaborations work.
So when I've been observing some of them, I kind of feel like they're trying to just take two songs which are potentially in similar sounding ragams in 2 different styles.
Yeah.
And just either putting one song's first stanza followed by another song stanza, and then sequentially placing them and thinking that that's a blend.
That's a very overdone concept.
Right.
It's not a blend. It's like it's just one after the other.
Right.
It's like placing Lego blocks on top of the other. A blend is something like you're making lemonade. So it needs to match with each other. So what my approach of a matchup or blending something would be more like you have one song overlapping like to each other. If it's the same ragam, it would fit, right? And that's what I think it would work better, because like just having one song, a part of one song, then the part of another song, that's more like a medley. There's nothing creative about that. You can do it with anything. It's just like placing chunks. But what would be really creative is having the hook of one song play with the melody of another song.
Overlapping.
Overlapping, yeah, that's how it should go. Otherwise, like, if you're a really talented fellow, like, that's what we're looking for. So creativity with structure, creativity with, like the harmonies and whatever they come up with.
So, so then I kind of feel like because many of them don't do this in their actual training. So like Carnatic music, the core pedagogy doesn't teach you to do these. So what's a good way for them to develop this attitude? Like, would you recommend they just look at good examples of mashups?
Okay, I wouldn't even go to the mashup category if I'm. So
Sure.
basically, one place that I got ideas was that there was a Jugalbandi between Balamurali Krishna and I forgot the other.
Zoshi?
Yes. So basically, the way they do it is it's just amazing. They mix each other's parts, and it's just that was what, so basically if you apply that concept, because that's a mashup, right? Like it's
Can you clarify that again? So when you say and if this is Balamurali Krishna and Bhimsen Zoshi.
Yeah.
So the portions from the Hindustani section, Balamurali Krishna ji will sing that in Carnatic style, and then vice versa.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just amazing. Like there's so much to learn from Indian music itself, and those concepts can be applied to Western.
So what you're also saying is then people should probably take some time to understand the other genre a little bit.
Exactly.
Not go and try and learn it, but just understand a little bit of the grammar, the feel, and just like how something sounds in there. So that's, so one of the other exciting things we've done recently is the Conical Express with Manjunath. It's probably the first time we've stepped outside of the fellowship community to invite a more senior musician to join the fellows, and it's been very exciting to work with him, and he's been very happy with the piece as well.
I'm such a fan of his.
Yep, yeah, and can we talk a little about what happened there?
Oh, he is a genius. So basically, I had a Skype session with him, and he was like, just send me a track. Then in 2 days I came up with something, and I wasn't even expecting, I didn't even know what he would send me, because it's the first time I'm working with somebody so senior. And then he sent that iPhone recording, and it was just mind blowing, and like it was just amazing. So according to that recording, I made a few changes, sent it back to him, and after that we got all of these fellows on board saying, hey, let's get all of these guys to collaborate with Manjunath. The most awesome part of the project was how it came out in the end. We have all these, the Carnatic chorus, we have Akshay on the Mridangam. It just works so beautifully well together. And all of this was online, not even one, like we didn't even,
I remember,
met.
I think half of it was even just on email basically, not even on a call. But one of the other things I've been noticing, just for the benefit of those who are watching this, is that oftentimes when we put a huge group of people and say, okay, form groups amongst yourself and do collaborations, they try to make a group of 8 people or like 6 people and say we're all going to work on one collaboration. But with you and with some of our successful collaborations, what we've seen is it's essentially, it starts with say 2 people. So that you start off with something, and then the other person responds to that, adds something.
Too many
as
cooks
the piece, exactly, too many cooks spoil the broth. So as the piece evolves and expands, you keep adding layers that might actually make sense. So is that a good approach in general to take?
The best approach to take is like have 1 or 2 people manage the idea, and the other 2 people just act as like follow instructions. So obviously they give their creative input as well, but as long as you have one point where everybody connects to, that's the best way to work, because that person has a vision in mind, and as long as everybody else agrees with that, I guess that would, Vande Mataram had 130 people. So that was like amazing.
And it's important because you know the level of talent that we pick, everyone feels like they have to drive it all the time, and I don't think that works all the time. You have to sometimes just be the follower, like you said, and you still will improvise within your domain. But overall, putting it together, you have to let the piece evolve. It doesn't sound good from day one. Right. The first few iterations are always very messy. And you have to let that messiness or that chaos sort of like take shape into something meaningful and be patient with it. Right.
Another important thing is to give space to the others, because what I've seen is like during the lot when we were preparing for last year's fellowship, everybody is playing together. So when the Ghatam playing, Mridangam is also playing, and the Cajon is also playing. So it's very important to give space to the other musicians. It's like less is more with music, because when you have two lead vocalists and then 5 accompanists, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So an important thing is to give each musician his space. So that's what I would suggest if you're working on a collaboration, is to have parts for everybody and make everybody shine. And when somebody's playing, just start to, the most important thing for a musician is to know when not to play.
Right, right.
So that's what I believe in.
That's great. Yeah, in fact, it kind of reminds me to how people often say that to give a good speech, you also have to learn how to use silences.
Yeah.
And it's important to play with those dynamics in a piece. So for those who are watching and wondering, but how does all of this happen? What are some of the basic audio video tools that you think everyone should just absolutely be familiar with? And this is not just for the fellowship, like just in general, if you're trying to do anything creative, you just need to know this.
Okay, if you have a Mac, GarageBand is the way to go, just to get started. Then there's Audacity, which works on Windows and Mac. There's also a software called Reaper, R-E-A-P-E-R. This is good to start with. So this is for audio production. For video production, there's iMovie and Windows Movie Maker. Just the basics are, nowadays everything is on app, like iPad apps.
Right. And then just to clarify, you're not looking at them kind of going and learning all the nitty-gritties of that.
Yeah,
it's essentially just how to open the software, drag and drop a piece of music, learn how to cut it, and just like place them one after the other.
Yeah, the tutorial for everything. Just look it up.
So just on a slightly different note, now that we're doing a lot of dance collaborations, and whenever we try to think of like most of the pieces we're now doing in music, a lot of dancers are excited to choreograph. But if it is the dancer's idea to begin with, what do you think is a good way for them to guide the music process, which actually happened with the fairy tale production last year?
Also the Alaripu.
Also the Alaripu.
Yeah.
We talk about places where it's inverted, where it's a dancer's idea, and then how do musicians take an active role but also play the follower's role? So how do they balance this out?
So for the Alaripu, Vivek just sent me the jati. That was it. And he didn't start choreographing. He just like had this jati in mind.
But it's important because the jati literally is the choreography from start to end.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is how the whole thing is going to progress.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So he sent me a jati and he had like a very basic like he didn't have the full choreography. So basically after the jati was done, I sent him back a basic track with the jati, with the beats and how the structure. So that did not change. So that's when he started choreographing. So he had a structure that would not change and he had a track that was 65% complete. I just needed to layer stuff on top. And that's when people should start choreographing. That's what I would suggest.
Right. And just to kind of like build on that, the fairy tale piece that happened. So they sort of, the dancers took the lead on first understanding and the equivalent of the jati here is their storyline.
Yeah.
So they had a storyline where these things are the scenes that are going to happen one after the other. Really be able to explain and see it in their mind happening. And then they provided that to Shankar, who then took it and then beautifully layered like different emotions to pertain to what each sequence has. So I think someone here, it clearly seems, needs to take the lead and hold the vision for the piece.
Yeah.
And then really be able to.
Yeah. As long as it's one person seeing that vision, it's okay.
So just on ending some like philosophical notes, right? So when many people ask like, what is the point of collaboration? What is this point of fusion?
Yeah.
And we enjoy it. Like I really enjoy it.
It was lots of fun.
Yeah.
No sleep, but lots of fun.
But why do we collaborate? Like why do we not just like do it with other Carnatic musicians and just call it a day? Like what are we doing with this process?
So the thing with collaboration is music is such a big like universe by itself, and one person cannot learn all of it. And when you collaborate with others, you get to learn another side of music that you might not have seen, or dance. So everybody learn, like if you have a cake and like that cake has 100 flavors in it, that's how it is. Somebody has this flavor, somebody has that flavor, but when you put these flavors together, you get something new, right? So that's how I look at collaboration. So I got to learn so much from Vivek, Sushmita, just by working with them, because they have a different perspective, and without their inputs, it wouldn't have, like all of these pieces might not have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So having seen the IndianRaga Fellowship like for 2 years now, and probably more through the videos and everything, what do you think an ideal fellow consists of in terms of like musicality, teamwork abilities, leadership, vision, everything?
Okay, so main thing is like he or she has to be very, very, very like talented. Another thing, easy to work with.
So we're looking forward to productions from the 2017 fellowship this year.
Looking forward to lots of. I'm not revealing anything.
Oh, okay. So we'll keep it a secret for all of you guys to find out. So we're going to be back again with a whole new series of collaborations that we do with fellows now across multiple cities and multiple countries and time zones. And we hope this has been helpful just to understand what we are looking for both at the fellowship and in our collaborations in general. And you can find out more information if you apply to the Indian Raga Fellowship at indianraga.com/fellowship. And check out more of our projects to learn about these different components at IndianRaga.com. And we'll be back again with more conversations like this to help you understand this magical process of creating collaborations.